Hey everyone, welcome back to the Road to 2000 series. This is episode 18. So, in this episode, I thought I'd show two games I played that were really high accuracy. The first one was kind of like my opponent mainly played with like high accuracy, and then the second one was sort of both of us. Um, yeah, these games I played last week. I think I'm a little bit behind, like making a video of all the games that I play. But yeah, let's get stuck into this episode. Um, okay, so the first game I played, I had the white pieces, and I opened with e4, and yeah, my opponent played the Sicilian, which is c5. I like this knight f3 before we play c3, as I've spoken about a little bit on the channel already. Um, my opponent played knight c6, and then I play c3, and he sort of set up in this quite aggressive way with c5 and e5, like really clamping down on the d4 square. It still is possible, I think, to play d5 after takes, 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 takes. You get like a much more sort of open position. Okay, but I started with bishop c4 first, and my opponent played knight f6, attacking this pawn on e4. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely defend it. I'm not sure exactly what the best move in this position is. I thought I'd try get a little bit sneaky and castle, just to say like offer up this e4 pawn, but then you get like rook e1 and sort of attack along the e file before black's castled. Wasn't sure if it was good, but it reminds me of like a Petrov style opening, which I don't know much about either, but it's basically like this sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know if that has like heaps of similarities with this. It just reminded me of it. Okay, sorry, I skipped ahead a bit. But my opponent didn't take the pawn on e4. Instead, they played bishop e7. Then I defended the pawn. Apparently here, like black can still take, because if I take with the rook, they've got that fork. But they missed that idea, a couple of moves in a row, I think. Play h3 just to try and get this bishop, just to try and defend this g4 square, prevent the bishop from going there. And after castles, I eventually do strike with d4. We get a big sort of trade in the middle. And then my opponent plays this queen a5 move, which I think is very good. Yeah, I mean it's very common to just sort of auto trade everything. In the 1800s certainly. But yeah, this is just a really nice move. I think queen a5 really activating the queen, and it comes with like quite a big threat, which is if I don't know, do something. If I get this bishop out, for example, like bishop f4, black can take my knight on d4, and if I take back with the queen, I would lose my rook on e1. So I did see that, and I played knight c3, sort of disconnecting that that threat on the e1 rook. Then my opponent played queen b4, which is another really good move. I think it attacks my bishop, and if I move my bishop, then black has two attackers on my knight, and I've only got one defender. So nice move, queen b4. I have to take this knight, which I don't really want to. Otherwise, I'm going to be losing a piece. So I play knight takes on c6, takes back, and then I can move my bishop. Then bishop e6, I suppose, is another sort of just developing move. Can't remember exactly what I was thinking about in this position, but I end up going for this bishop takes on e6 trade. My opponent opens up the f file for themselves. It wasn't a bad move, that trade. In fact, I think if I allowed black to take my bishop, um, either I take back with the pawn or I take with the queen, and then I'm going to end up with doubled pawns there. Not a very serious sort of deficiency, but it might be a bit of a weakness long term. F3 is now the first, I think, mistake, or the first serious-ish mistake that I make. Doesn't lose material immediately, but it just creates too many. H3 and F3 in combination is often very weak, and it just creates too many weaknesses around my king on the dark squares here. And black's able to really punish this move long term. I think I was just thinking about trying to solidify this center on e4. Like my pawn on e4 was looking a bit shaky. But yeah, this move really gets punished. I'll show you how. So after d5, I attack the queen with a3. The queen gives a check. I move my bishop to block, letting black have the b2 pawn, and I try and create counterplay around this capture. So black takes on b2. I attack the queen with the knight to a4. Queen moves back, and then I go rook b1. And even though I've given up that pawn, I have sort of created some activity for my pieces. Like my rook's quite active now, my bishop's quite active. My knight's not too active on the edge of the board, but it's got some nice, specifically the c5 square looks quite nice for the knight. Okay, but the queen comes right into g3. Starting to get a little bit low on time. I just sort of attack the queen with bishop f2. Queen moves back. And now I take on d5, which is another big mistake. I thought that on taking on d5, I could, open up my rook, attacking the e6 square. Or if we take on d5 and black takes back this way, that would blunder the bishop. So I thought they would take back this way, and then we can enter in with the rook, or just maybe bring the knight to c5. Perhaps a bit of a lazy move. But yes, I end up taking on d5, but black takes with the knight, which is a great move, I think. Quite counterintuitive to leave these two pawns separated like this, but it really gets the knight moving to some good squares into my position. Around the weak dark squares, around my king. So, why did I move my king here? I can't actually remember. So this is not a threat because we can take there. I suppose knight f4 is a big threat. Yeah. So if we play, let's say, some activating move, knight f4 is very strong, threatening checkmate. And threatening this as well. So yeah, in fact, I think I just wanted to get my king out there so I could meet knight f4 with rook g1, sorry. Black plays knight f4, I get my rook there, attacks my queen, move my queen. Queen comes into f5. I play king h2. Since this came with a threat of takes, and checkmate. So I got to move my king up to defend the pawn, or perhaps I didn't have to, but that was one way to defend that checkmate. And then knight d3 is a really good move. Not only does it fork these two, but after I move my queen, they take my bishop, I take their knight. There's queen f4 check at the end, picking up the knight. So yeah, I move the king. I could have resigned here. I thought I'd play on for a few more moves. try and, set up a cheeky checkmate in case he misses it. But he didn't miss it. And then I played rook d1. Rook d1, hanging my rook. And, that was actually hanging my rook with checkmate. So that was how that game ended. I just felt like I got a bit destroyed on these dark squares around my king. My opponent played really well, building up pressure here. And that was the first game. They ended up playing at a 96% accuracy, which is super good. Yes, but on to the next game. Now, let me just find it quickly. The next game, I also had the white pieces. Let me go back to the start. Okay, so I had the white pieces again. I was playing against this guy, Vintera Vintage. I played e4. My opponent played c6, so they're playing the Caro-Kann, which is what I play with black against e4. And against the Caro-Kann, I like playing this exchange. I play bishop d3. Knight c6, I play c3. They get the other knight to f6, and I play h3. So this is the setup I play. I've spoken about it a couple of times on the channel. It's basically just to prevent this bishop from getting out. In this position, black plays g6, which is the move I find the most difficult to face. And it's what I play with black against when people play this with white against me. A few videos ago, the idea of g6 is just to play bishop f5 and to try and insist that you can get the bishop out. Someone even played g4 against me in this position, which is, like a insisting back that you can't get the bishop out. I think that's a little bit too much, like just a little bit too much of an overextension. So I decided to play knight f3, and then they play bishop f5, as they sort of suggested they would after playing g6. Now, in this position, of course, one move is to take the bishop. But I kind of don't like doing that. I've just found that I get in trouble sometimes when I take this bishop. It looks very nice because you double black's pawns here on the f-file. But it's really, I really find it's tricky for white to deal with this. Black seems to always get a lot of play. They can play rook g8. Maybe I just need to study that a little bit more. But the sort of positions I get, I'll give you a sample, and these are probably not the best moves, but let's say you take this bishop. You say that, since they played g6, we're going to punish them, by doubling their pawns. Okay, so black takes back. Let's say we castle here. Black plays rook g8. Let's say we get the bishop out. Then black plays e6. Just making moves that look kind of sensible. Knight d2. Let's say black jumps in with the knight to e4. And this is a really strong knight. One argument might be to take the knight. If we take the knight and black takes back like this, we've got to move this knight. We can go forward or back. Let's say we go forward. And then all of a sudden, let's say black comes in with something like queen h4. Okay, so there's bishop g3 in this scenario. Maybe queen h4 is a little bit premature, but basically this seems to be the position you get where, this is just a sample line where black seems to be attacking quite nicely along the g-file. They can even take the knight, take back, and try and get the bishop into the game. And I don't know, maybe this was not a great sort of setup example, but it just feels like black has a lot of play here. Um, and if you don't take the knight, then this knight just lives here forever. I mean, this knight is just really strong. And the only way really to get rid of it is to play f3, but that would be, you know, like we saw in the last game, really, like very weakening around my king. Once you've played h3, f3 is sort of often problematic. So, I don't know. Maybe I don't understand these positions well enough. I always find that this position is easier to play with black than with white. Okay, so instead of all of that, I don't take the bishop. I let black take my bishop if he wants, and I castle. Okay, so black does take my bishop, which is my good bishop. Like my light squared bishop here is often the good piece since these pawns are on dark squares. So yeah, I take back with the queen. This is just like, that's why I find g6 super strong, because, you know, not only does it get black's light squared bishop out, but it also allows black often to trade off their light squared bishop for our light squared bishop, which is our good bishop. I suppose if we didn't want to trade here, maybe there's something like bishop b5, but yeah, then black sort of claims this really nice diagonal. I don't know. It's kind of tricky. I castle. We do get this trade. Bishop g7. I think the next few moves are quite normal developing moves. Okay, black moves back with the knight. I play rook e1. They castle. I bring my knight to d2. These are all sort of quite standard positions for, quite standard squares for these pieces. We've got a6. And basically here, I think, you know, my plan is to kind of dominate the e5 square. This is a very contested square. Black's also trying to, you know, maintain control over it. I'm trying to sort of dominate it. I'd love to have a piece there, like, you know, get a knight to e5 or even a bishop. And just sort of attack. Maybe bring my king to g3, start pushing the h pawn. Just start, you know, attacking on the king side, basically. I want to get all these 5 pieces involved in an attack on the king, eventually. On the other hand, black is trying to create some play on the queen side. So when you've got 2 pawns like this against 3, 3 pawns, let's say, against 4, I think this is what it's called, like a minority attack when you start pushing these pawns. So if you imagine that black gets this pawn all the way down to b4, ideally defended, but even if it's not defended, it can work. It sort of chips away at this structure here. If I take the pawn, then this pawn becomes very weak. Even this pawn becomes quite weak. And if I let black take me on c3, and I take back with the b3 pawn, then all of a sudden my pawn chain is quite a bit weakened, and this c3 pawn is a bit of a target for black. So that's kind of how this game panned out. Black tried to attack on the queen side, and I tried to attack on the king side. So, I started with knight b3, perhaps trying to get into c5. Looks a little bit, after just saying I'm trying to attack on the king side, I'm moving away from the king side. Looks a little bit counterintuitive. B5, that makes sense. I play a3, trying to stop b4. Okay, black comes to b6, and I go into c5, which is a good square for my knight. Black comes to c4. I need to defend this pawn on b2, but I kind of wanted to double rooks anyway, so I don't really mind. Even though this is a very strong knight, I didn't mind it coming there, I think. Rook f8. I double up rooks. Bishop f8. Computer doesn't like that move, apparently. Okay, apparently I've got b3 here is quite strong. And then after takes, the knight's getting trapped, perhaps. Although there's b4 there. Don't know, there's looks like there's some tactic there with b3 that I missed. I move my queen back to d1. Okay, we have e6. I try and reroute my knights to control e5 again. a5, here comes the minority attack. Queen c1. Can't remember exactly why I played that move. Perhaps to get in here. Bishop h6, which is sort of a common idea. Yeah. Maybe also just to add sort of support to this a3 and c3 pawns, because b4 is coming very soon, if not now. There's b4. We go takes. I don't really want to take here. I'd prefer black to take me. Okay, but now finally I get a piece to e5. We can do a big trade, but I've got, more than enough coverage of that e5 square. So if everything gets traded, I'll still be able to land a piece there, which is what happens. Okay, f6 I was quite happy to see. That seems like a bit of a concession. Weakens e6 quite a lot. Like when I move the bishop away, I'm attacking e6. Black defends it. I finally get my queen towards the king into f4. King f7, okay. I suppose I was attacking f6. Now I shift over to try and attack this pawn. But after bishop g7, I realize I can't actually take that pawn because rook h8 would trap my queen. So I have to sort of think of a new plan. I shift to g4. At this point, we've got sort of 2.5 minutes on the clock, 2 minutes 40 on the clock. I'm sort of trying to maintain the pressure here and try and make moves that keep some of these pieces active, but don't make any mistakes, really. Like, just try and keep pressure on everything, especially this weak e6 pawn. But maybe I'll try and start pushing the h pawn. Yeah, who knows. So takes, and queen c6. So now this is black's target. See, my c3 pawn's quite weak. I defend it with queen f3. Apparently not the best move, but, I suppose does the trick. Black attacks c3 again. I defend it again. And then they play king f7. Sorry, they move from f7. They move from f7 to g8. Not sure why they did that exactly. Yeah, I don't know. But also getting sort of lowish on time, trying to make moves. I bring my bishop into a slightly more active square on f4. King goes back to f7, so perhaps they're just shuffling back and forth, waiting for me to make a mistake or to try and overextend. Okay, then I play bishop g5, which is a bit of a fancy looking move, just making use of this pin. Doesn't really do anything yet, because f6 is defended enough. They play rook a6, and then I start pushing this h pawn, just trying to create another sort of weakness in black's position. Black does play h5, pushing another pawn in front of their king. So now I'm sort of felt like I was softening up black's position a bit, even though computer was unfazed. It thought this was a good move, and it thinks that, white's got a slight advantage here, but nothing major. I play queen f4. Computer wasn't a huge fan of that. Okay, after king g8, I think I had to be careful not to take here, because then rook f8 would pin my bishop, and I'd be losing a piece there. Okay, I play bishop h6, which is the best move. King h7, we trade bishops, and okay, I move my rook to go after this f6 square. And basically there's a lot of sort of positional shuffling around, trying to target some of these weak pawns. I felt like I had a slightly better position though, because blacks sort of pushed a lot of their pawns in front of their king. And I thought at some point they might crack here. Okay, they defend. I move the rook over. They attack c3. I defend it. They attack it again. I defend it again. But this move comes with a bit of a hidden threat as well as defending the c3 pawn. After they give a check, I move my king. And then they blunder with queen d6. And the hidden threat behind queen f3 is to take this pawn on h5, making use of the pin. So that's what I do, and now it's going to be pretty difficult for black to defend. In fact, losing that pawn changes the game from, plus 0.2, plus 0.3, like a slight advantage for white, to plus 7 for white. So yeah, this move is like the equivalent of losing a rook and more. And I suppose, it's just because I'm crashing through. I suppose there is a forced line where I win the rook. Black plays rook h8, but that loses the rook quite forcefully because I've got queen takes on g6. And after king f8, I would have queen g7 winning the rook. So yes, that was the second game. It was a really nice game. I thought it was a great sort of tussle. We both got down to like 30 seconds on the clock at the end. Just kind of a like positional tussle that's quite typical of the Caro-Kann, I suppose. But yeah, that game was like over 94% for me, and I think high 80s for my opponent. So, pretty accurate game, I would say. And I'm sort of, I don't know, happy with how I kind of didn't release the pressure here. I felt like I was sort of pushing. It would have been easy for me to sort of, get impatient and try and force the issue. But I felt like I was slowly building pressure, and then there was a mistake that came from black. Yes, anyway, those were the two games I played last week. Thanks everyone for watching. Let me know what you thought of these. First one I got a bit, smashed, I would say, a bit outplayed. This one was a bit of a slow burn. I thought it was a pretty good tussle. I still need to figure out how to play against this g6 move. I mean, I think I played this okay, but ideally I don't want to trade off this bishop. So maybe this ultra aggressive g4 is the way to go. I mean, the computer, I don't think likes it. No, not at all. But I just hate it how black has an easy way to trade off your light squared bishop in this exchange Caro-Kann. So yes, I definitely have to think about what I'm going to do there. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. This was a bit of a longish video, and I will see you all next time.